were Woodlawn's first African American students, and in what grade were they enrolled?
There are 6 African American students that attend Woodland. Cynthia Holder, Rita King, Matrice Chamberlain, and Leon Humphreys are juniors. Sheeta King is a freshman, and Lily Humphreys is a sophomore.
How would you describe Woodlawn High School?
Woodland High is a school that is primarily for white students. When the African Americans started attending, there was a lot of controversy and divided a lot of our students. The school itself has a beautiful design. The school was actually completed in January of 1922, and a lot of people say it actually looks a lot more like a church than a school.
What kind of students were you? What kind of student were you in high school?
Well, I grew up in the south side of Birmingham. I was always a good bit smaller than everyone that I played against, so I knew that I had to be tougher than the average player in whatever sport I was playing, but I never wanted anyone to outwork me.
What kind of athlete were you?
No one was going to put in more time than me. I knew not the most physical gifted. I was not the most physical gifted athlete on the field, but I was strong and quick. Even though I was 5'8", my coaches always said they would not find anyone more competitive than I was on the field. I played football and baseball while at Woodland. An injury during football almost cost me my baseball career. During the spring football practice in 1958, I was playing running back. I tried to score a touchdown by diving over the mound of my teammates and landed headfirst on the ground. I put my arm down first to break my fall, which injured my shoulder pretty badly, and it required surgery.
How did you decide to attend Auburn University?
In 1960, I decided to enroll at Auburn University. I had to bus tables in the athletic dorm cafeteria because I was a non-scholarship player. But I was able to join the baseball team. I was a sophomore in 1962, but only had 9 at-bats that season. The next season, Paul Nix became our new coach and gave me a scholarship. The scholarship took away some of the money pressure of how I was going to pay for things, so I was able to finish the season with a 17-8 record and win the Southeastern Conference Championship.
So while you were at Auburn, I understand you met someone named Debbie. Tell me more about Debbie.
Debbie was friends with my younger sister Marcia. During the sleepover, Debbie noticed me and asked my sister if I had any romantic interest in her. My first reaction was, "That little Johnson girl? She's just a kid." And that was that. Then 5 years later, I noticed Debbie on the campus of Auburn. She was a freshman dating someone else, and I was a senior. I asked a friend of hers about her, and she gave me her phone number. I called her a few days later, and she agreed to go out with me, but she had to break a date with her boyfriend.
When did you decide to get married?
After we went out, we spent a lot of time together and even went back home to Birmingham together for Christmas break. It was one of those things where you knew it was that person. When we got back home, a lot of our friends were already married. I took a temporary job to make extra Christmas money, and Debbie spent a lot of time with her grandparents. I have a habit of being very impulsive, so on one of our dates while we were home for Christmas, I asked her, "Hey, I don't have to work on Christmas Eve. You want to get married?" Her answer was yes, and that was the first time I ever kissed her.
How did you become a coach at Woodlawn?
After the holidays, Debbie and I returned to Auburn, and I finished my bachelor's degree in education. When I started looking for jobs after I graduated, I had thought about working in the sporting goods sales, but decided to look for a teaching job instead. Woodland High had an opening for an assistant football coach and a science teacher, so I So of course I applied and was offered both positions. I would be working with an incredible head coach, John Lee Armstrong, and knew that I had an opportunity to learn from the best. He had played baseball and football at Howard College in Birmingham and was about to start his first season as head coach.
How long were you an assistant coach before becoming Woodlawn's head coach?
I was appointed head coach before the 1971 season. After taking on the head coach position, I hired Jerry Williams, Jerry Starnes, and Jim Price as assistant coaches.
What kind of coach did you want to be, and how did you hope to motivate your players?
Well, I'd always been a hard worker and dedicated. I wanted my teams to be rough, but I refused to become a madman to make that happen. During a moment of self-reflection, I promised to be a positive coach, a mentor, and a leader who would make lasting impact on players.
What happened to your team in 1971 that made a drastic change in how you played?
In 1971, the government mandated desegregation, and more than 500 African American students began attending my school. Honestly, the only interaction I had with an African American was with my family's maid, so I was not sure how to handle these students myself. The black students did not want to change schools, and the white students did not want them in their schools. The team did not want the 9 African American students playing with them, which caused a huge division.
Who is Walls Gobel?
Walls knocked on my office door in August of 1973. When I went to answer the door, I just saw a man about my height with bushy hair. He had played college basketball and for more than 10 years had been traveling across the state of Alabama, changing the lives of young people as an evangelist. I was about to begin my 3rd season as head coach and my 1st season as the assistant principal at Woodland. I had no idea how much Walls would change the lives of everyone who was being ripped apart by the racial tension because of the government mandated desegregation at Woodland. Gobel knew there was only one answer to the problem at Woodland High: Jesus Christ.
What team was your biggest rival who played against Woodlawn?
The biggest rival by far would be Banks High School.
When did you notice your team begin to turn around and become more accepting to the African Americans on your team?
Before each game, Wells would come into the locker room and pray with them. When he started, only 1, maybe 2 players would join him. As the season went on, he had almost everyone praying with him. During the game against the NC Yellow Jackets, African American Tony Nathan was put into the game. By praying and believing this was God's will throughout the season, the team became more in sync.
And last, what was the biggest game of your career?
The biggest game I ever coached would have to be in 1974 when we played the Banks Jets. We had an African American running back, Tony Nathan. They had a Caucasian quarterback, Jeff Rugledge. More than 42,000 fans attended that game. The Banks beat us that game, but it was the game I will never forget. The stadium was overflowing with fans. Cars lined the streets with the fans wanting to get in to see the big game. It is a night that I will never forget, everyone coming together and playing as one team. As a coach, I could not ask for anything more.